Hey guys, welcome to Whiskey, Lead, and Steel, Feelings Hurt While You Wait, the official podcast of Aggressive Defensive Solutions. I'm Lee Curling, and with me as always, Rick Sutton.
Howdy. And this episode is brought to you by Arsenal Performance and Gunworks, Chesapeake, Virginia. If you have a gun you want to make it better, send it over to those guys. Pretty cool.
All right. And now's the time to do it.
Yeah.
Because you can take your gun over there.
Yes, you can.
They have their FFL.
Mm-hmm.
They can lock it up.
That's right.
They can do cool stuff to it.
They have a big screen TV. They have coffee.
Always have coffee.
They're going to get a smoke eater. So you can smoke a cigar and watch a John Wayne movie while your gun gets customized. There are a few things more American than that, I think.
There
Very few.
There are a few things more American than watching a John Wayne movie while your gun is being worked on.
Absolutely. Cool. So what are we talking about today, Lee? Since you're in charge.
I'm in charge.
That's right.
All right. So, hey, we did training this weekend.
Yes, we
on
did.
Sunday.
It's good stuff.
Did a Carbine dynamics class after the match. Yeah.
Good match, too. Everybody seemed to like the stages, especially the one that was up close and personal.
It was. So, I mean, we did the concealed carry match last month.
Yep.
Right, which was all way up front, or way up close and personal.
Yeah.
And a lot of positive feedback on that. So, yep. So we listened, we heard, we introduced a couple of elements from that into just kind of the everyday match.
I didn't bring any water out. Nobody had to put their gun in the water. Nobody had to go for a swim because Lee wouldn't let me.
But we were on the big range, uncovered.
Yeah.
So
weather was perfect too.
Weather was terrific.
Gorgeous.
I mean, it's May in northern North Carolina, and it was in the low 60s, low mid 60s. So yeah, it was nice. It's nice. So, but after the match, we did Carbine dynamics. Spent about 4 hours or so with a good group of hardcore guys that hung around.
Yeah.
And a couple of last minute going, hey, can we get in on that class?
And the answer to that is always yes.
Absolutely. If you're on property and you want to get on the class, absolutely.
That's right.
So, what are your thoughts?
So everybody seemed really receptive to some extremely out of the box stuff. Stuff that you and I have seen done before. Because obviously we do this kind of stuff. But we started talking about, and everything as a form follows function, as we already know that. But then the other aspect of that is, and we've talked about this in the past. So when you get out of your comfort zone gets bigger. And then once your comfort zone gets bigger, you are less likely to make a panic-based decision when things go down, right? So now there is a legitimate need, and if you're watching out there, ask yourself if you've ever covered this in training. Is there a advantage to shooting your long gun with your non-dominant hand and your non-dominant eye? Well, obviously, if you have to go around cover or concealment, there's that. But for the folks who are going, well, I'm carrying a gun for defensive purposes. What's the first rule of knife fighting? You're going to get cut. So if you're in a gunfight, you might get shot. And if you get shot, it's probably not going to be the famous Hollywood through and through to the shoulder, which is the last place I'd actually ever want to get shot, really. But if your support hand goes down or your dominant eye is no longer available for the fight and the fight's still going, that's not the time to figure out that you can, if you're a right-handed, right-eye shooter, that you can actually shoot your long gun left-handed and left-eyed. So we covered that, and everyone's like, oh, that's pretty cool. So we just switched the gun over, right? Went from here to here, or in your case. Yeah, you did from here to here, because you're completely cross-eyed.
I'm completely mutated.
Yeah, right? And then we went, well, what if your shooting hand, but not your shooting eye was down? So everybody was like, what? I was like, yeah.
What?
Shoot left-handed, right eye, right shoulder. And that took some getting used to. And they're like, oh, but then they're like, okay. And we switched it over, right hand, left shoulder, and left eye, right? And we're like, oh, that's pretty cool. That's kind of weird. And then we're like, okay, now we're going to shoot one-handed on your carbine. And that's when I have all the coolest, latest, greatest gadgets on my otherwise 6.5 pound carbine that now weighs slightly more than an M60.
My guns, but my gun's heavy. Yes,
And that's on you, Spartacus.
so look, I was out there,
Yeah.
and I participate. I took a chance to participate
Yeah.
in a bunch of the shooting because, you
You get the chance.
I don't generally get a chance to shoot as much as I want to, right?
Nope.
So let's face it, when we ended up having 3 lines and it just broke down to this one person. I'm like, oh yeah, you better bet I'm going to jump in there and shoot.
Absolutely.
Right, and that one person on that last line. That Knight's armament rail, it's heavy, right? I mean, my gun is the same as it was when I took the EOTech off of my M4, put it on it after I came back from Iraq in 2004.
Yeah.
Right. So that was, and I still have the receipt for that EOTech. Before anybody goes, you stole an EOTech? Nope, I bought an EOTech before I left because I don't realize buy all kinds of cool stuff back then.
Oh yeah.
But it definitely interesting because I haven't done that in a long time, right? It's been a while since I've done any of that shooting. But we started off with the normal, the normal ready positions and at close distance and
Positional shooting.
Yep,
Yeah.
that positional shooting. Yep. But we got back to the
75 yards.
75 yards, right? And it's funny talking to these guys as we got down towards the end, and it was like, okay, shoot one-handed, left hand and one-handed right hand, and they're heavy, and you're trying to get up underneath of there, and it's interesting because most everyone found it easier to do it offhand than they did in a normal shooting position, and it's just the way that they move their shoulders around, but then it was fire several rounds one-handed from both hands. Okay, now your choice, two-handed, however you want to. I talked to those guys, and I'm listening to a couple of them, and it's like how hard it was. I was like, well, you wore yourself out. You wore yourself out with 10, 15 rounds on each side, one-handed. So then when you went back up to a normal two-handed grip, you were exhausted. And I kind of equated to them. It's like firing a couple hundred rounds. Normally you have just worn yourself out, and now, but again, that goes back to that, inducing stress in kind of a different way, right?
Yeah.
You can induce the faux stress by yelling at people and screaming at people and all that other stuff, and I've never really been a fan of that in these type of training evolutions. Or you can induce stress in a way
organically.
The student doesn't understand stress is being induced. You're right. It is organic introduction by going, all right, we did a little bit so you can see. All right, now we're going to increase it up. We're going to notch it up a little bit. Yep. So that by the time you're ending, you're just white.
Yeah. And that's the other thing to do. So we had 4 hours. And 4 hours, I think we shot 300-ish rounds. Because again, this was not a just come out and sling lead at the berm. This was come out and get something out of every time you press the trigger. Because while prices of ammo have come down, ammo's still not cheap. So these guys are out there and they're slinging lead and they're 4 hours in, And we did no running. Now we did some standing to kneeling, kneeling to standing, standing to kneeling to prone, prone to kneeling to standing, up and down. But we didn't do any sprints.
No.
We didn't do anything that ramped up the cardio aspect of this. This was basically static line drills, just using muscles that you're not used to using. And then the other aspect of that too is, and I was talking to Steve about this over coffee this morning, because he asked how the class was, and I told him, and I said, until you do a task analysis, then you don't really know what it is that you need. And we know this, we say this all of the time. Ounces become pounds, pounds become tons, seconds become hours, hours become days. So when you go, well, I'm preparing myself for the total breakdown of society. So when society breaks down, I have the kit that I need to sally forth and save the Republic. Okay, cool. Good for you. I got news for you, dude. If you've never done this, if you've never put everything that you need to eat and drink and stay warm and dry and also fight for 3 days on your person and gone for successive, with like a 4-hour break between them, 5-mile hikes, just on flat roads, that'll be telling. And if you've never taken all of that shit and gotten in the ocean with it, or a river, and swam a little bit, and then got out and gone on a 10-mile hike all nice and wet and squishy, yeah, that becomes really telling. Because if you get out of your car and you walk across the range to the firing line and you shoot, and then you take a breather and load your mags and shoot the shit and eat a Snickers and drink a Gatorade, and then you get back on the line, and you do that for 4 hours, and you are smoked because you have a 18-pound M4. And again, figure out what it is that you're going to do with that. We had a guy, and I'm not going to chuck him under the bus. I like him. He's a good dude. And I asked him this question, and he didn't have an answer. And I said, so you have a 16-inch barrel M4 with a can on it, and you have your optic doped for 600 yards?
Oh, no. 600 yards?
Yeah. I was like, what do you plan on doing with that? I guess he wanted to be quiet while he lasered in the laser-guided bomb with his rifle. I was like, oh, okay. But, that's the other thing, and this is not rock chucking, but this is something to think about. So years ago, Trijicon came out with an ACOG, and I think the ODA cats wanted this, or CAG wanted it. So it was a 4-power ACOG, and the first iteration that the ODA's guys had was then it had a 3-dot night sight mounted integrally on top of the ACOG.
Yeah.
So you could patrol up, and then you could do CQC. It's a great idea. Not to be outdone, somebody then said, well, actually what we need is we need a micro red dot on top of the ACOG. And I got to admit, the first time I saw that, I was like, oh, that's fucking sexy. And then I was like, no, I could buy a fucking motorcycle for that amount of money. I'm not buying one of them fucking things.
Yeah.
And the Marine Corps certainly not going to issue me one.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah.
So we had a guy came out, same concept, except of course he had a monstrous variable power scope that he could make 600-yard shots on, and then he had a reflex sight mounted on top of it.
Yes.
Right? Now, and this is not chucking rocks, but this is one of the things that I looked at. I went, So I guess the theory is do everything you got to do, patrol up, and then if you need quick shots at 100 yards and in, you can go ahead and use your reflex. Okay. Except that as I watched him shoot, in order to use the reflex sight at 75 yards and in, he couldn't get a cheek weld. So without a cheek weld...
I noticed that across the range.
Yeah. So without a cheek weld, just regular shooting without a cheek weld, that got a little squirrely, and it showed downrange. Well, then, when he went to shoot one-handed, so while I was shooting one-handed for demos, I'm using my regular sights on my AR-15A2, tuck that thing in, pull it in tight to my shoulder, and clamp my face down. I could still see my sights. Well, so that he could see the sight, he's leaned back, and to get the eye relief so he can see the red dot, he's got to keep the gun pulled away from his shoulder. So he's trying to hold this front heavy thing up just by the pistol grip. He's barely got any contact with his shoulder, and he has no cheek weld.
Right.
I was like, dude, that looks uncomfortable. He goes, yeah, this sucks. I was like,
yeah. It does. Yes, it
does.
So interesting. We're talking about the ACOG and the Trijicon sights, and we talked about aim points, going with that, right? And I've got a first generation EOTech.
Yeah.
What I noticed, and I was a little worried before I started shooting, because again, and I've talked about it before with the red dot, right? With my pistol, right? I've got my right contact optimized for distance, so being right eye dominant, I can see through the red dot, and my red dot is crystal clear. My left eye is optimized so I can, see my watch, because I'm old like that. Thank you to my optometrist who told me that I was too old to be able to see everything. But when I look through my red dot with my left eye, it's all blurry because you don't focus on the red dot. You focus through on the target using a red dot. The EOTech, those wizards, it's as clear through both eyes.
I'm not trying to be a dick.
But he's going to be.
But I'm going to be. Oddly, and I'm not even trying. So you have an EOTech on your rifle, and that works like a champ. And what is it that you have on your handgun?
I have a Holosun.
Okay. Holosuns are not horrible.
No.
But Holosuns
are not
EOTechs.
And I do know that. I do know that.
But here's what I will say this. If you need an EOTech, don't use a Holosun.
Oh, absolutely.
Most people don't need an EOTech.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
Almost nobody who does not go for rides in Bradleys, Blackhawks, or AAVs or Zodiacs. Almost none of the. If that's not you, you probably don't need an EOTech. Yeah. Or unfortunately a Trijicon. Yeah. I love me some Trijicons, and if the military or whomever wants to buy me one, I'm all for it. But I'm not chucking that money out. I got a fucking mortgage.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Well, with all that being said, is when in shooting offhand, and off eye, from a non-dominant eye, I had no issue with that.
Yeah.
So there's money out there. It was worth the money.
Yep.
So, of course, I bought it back in the time when
you could see.
Well, and they were apparently more reasonably priced than they would be today. But
that can't be right because we've built back Becker.
That's the inflation. So,
Yeah, it was a good training day, and I think it was eye-opening for a lot of the guys. Some of the guys had trained with us previously, and some of the guys hadn't. And one of the things that I liked was that everybody said, one guy said, I didn't know what to expect, so this is not what I thought I was going to get, but this is exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
And then everybody else is like, yeah, we've trained with you before. This is what we thought it was going to be. Yeah, as advertised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there was one that did go dynamics. I thought we were going to run a lot, but this was definitely good too.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Because I don't think you'd want to run and done this.
No.
Yeah. And again, I not to pat us on the shoulder, but again, I think we have once again proven that a 4-hour training block covering 5 or 6 things, is the way to go for the adult learner, especially the adult learner who does not carry a gun all the time. It's a big difference if you are getting in and out of your patrol car with your gun belt and your body armor on 40 hours a week, as opposed to you have a normal human being's job and you probably go to the gym, or maybe you don't, and then you come out on the weekend, because I think everybody who shot with us, shot in the training, shot the afternoon match. So they came out and they shot 5 stages.
Right.
So you call it an hour and a half on the ground for maybe 7 minutes worth of shooting.
Right.
And then 4 hours worth of shooting, except for when we took a break to explain something or load mags. And them dudes, they all went home and slept well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was a great training day. And again, this is why we're in the business we're in, because it's the kind of shit we like to do.
Yeah. My big win was, that. So setting up for the carbine, right? The holster on that it's a Glock holster. I don't carry a Glock. I don't think I've fired my Glock in
a while,
several years, right? Because I was like, oh, well, I guess I need to grab that, so I'll have a pistol on this
That's right.
on this belt, and there at the end, right? There was the very non-realistic for defensive shooting, right? After you run your carbine dry, transition to your handgun, and again, I have a red dot on my carry and my normal training gun. My Glock 17 has stock.
Treasure con sights, right?
No, they're stock.
Ball and bucket?
Those are yes. Those are the ball and bucket. Yep, that's a ball and bucket. So yep. They're not. Those are not Trigicon sights.
Ew.
So draw 75 yards first round, hit the 12x12 plate. I feel pretty good with that.
Well, you should.
With the non-dominant eye, because that's the only way I can see the iron sights, because my contacts are backwards.
Well, those are actually plastic sights, but yeah.
Yeah.
I can't believe.
It's a Glock. It's
Take that fucking thing up to the shop and get proper sights on it. That is sad.
That would make me feel like I would need to shoot it.
Well, if you have to shoot it, you want the fucking... Ugh, what is wrong with you? Tell you what, take it up to the shop. I'll have them put a set of Trigicons on there. In fact, what I'll have them do is not even Trigicons. I'll have them put the Ameriglows on there.
Ameriglow.
That is a giant, obnoxious orange ball that Ray Charles can see. And then night sights in the back. That way, even if you don't have a contact in, you go, well, there's a big orange ball there. We're good.
Cover the target with the big orange ball.
Yeah, there you go.
So
we'll get it painted pink and green for you.
Yeah. Okay.
Not like real pink.
Right.
But army pink and green.
Army pink,
yeah. Which, by the way, kudos to the Army. I'm not a big fan of people going, "Oh, we should change our uniforms."
Oh, yeah.
But that World War II era uniform is a fucking sharp looking uniform.
Dude, they brought
I mean, it's
back
not alpha greens, but it's
yeah. Well, they they brought it back, and of course, like everything, they same thing. We had the greens, right, which were horrendously bad.
yeah.
Right, they were right from the 70s on until we got rid of them, and then it was like, all right, we're going to turn the dress blues into the alpha uniform, the Class A's. At which point they took the dress blues and completely ruined them. They changed material, they changed the cut. The dress blues were designed to be worn with suspenders because they were a cavalry cut of pants. So they, cut them straight and put a belt on them, right? They changed the material, they changed the stripe, they changed everything about it. So they completely ruined that. Then it was like, hey, we're gonna trial a different uniform, and they came up with 4 or 5 different options, and that World War II, and it was like, man, that's great. But what they approved in the end, while it is far superior to any of the modern uniforms, it's not as striking
As your granddad's uniform.
well as the original that they had shown. They were like, we're gonna do this, which was essentially, it was a recreation of that World War II early 50s uniform. And but they changed it, they changed the cut a little bit, they changed some material, they modified a little bit of colors, and you go, okay,
It's better than it was, but it's
better than it was, but
not as good as it could be.
well, but the one thing to know on that too is that was originally an officer uniform. So back in the 50s, that's what the officers wore. Of course, they did not make that distinction for this one, which is good. So, at one point, they were going to change some different colors, and the enlisted would be a color, and the officer would be a color. And it's like, can we just do the right thing? Anyway, all right, I'm going to off my soapbox now. Anyway.
Of course, the green uniform looked really good when Trotman was wearing it. When he went to Seattle to save the sheriff from John Rambo. I watched that the other day. That's a good movie.
It was a beret, all kinds of wonky.
I was like, Richard Crenna. Dude, that dude was on sand pebbles. He's a little old to be a colonel. That's like when you watch Maverick and you're like, this dude's still he's a 06? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. That doesn't work that way. Because he'd have to be like 36 years in. And the Navy kicks you out for shit like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still a good movie, though. Had John Hamm in it. I like John Hamm. So, there you go. Well, down the rabbit hole we went, because it's been a while, but that's all right. If you found this entertaining, it's because you have a good sense of humor. If you didn't find it entertaining, well, you need to go buy yourself a sense of humor someplace. Any rocks, bottles, bombs, hand grenades?
Nope.
All right.
We'll see you next
Hope
week.
you had fun. Burses still suck. And I asked him this question, and he didn't have an answer. And I said, so you have a 16-inch barrel M4 with a can on it, and you have your optic doped for 600 yards?